This is the story of a closed door. What looked like a simple omission from a summer guest list was actually a devastating metaphor for absolute, irreversible exile. In less than a few weeks, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were handed the most humiliating public rejection of their post-royal lives, not through a dramatic palace statement, but through the terrifying silence of an unmailed wedding invitation. In this video, we are going to unpack the quiet but brutal architecture of this royal ban. We will examine exactly what happened behind the scenes of Peter Phillips' upcoming wedding, why the selective guest list is a fatal blow to the Sussex brand, and how the subtle inclusion of two highly controversial princesses exposes a dark psychological truth. We will trace the timeline of this collapse back to a single, overlooked moment of supreme arrogance at St. Paul's Cathedral and reveal what this absolute severance means for a couple whose only remaining currency is their proximity to the family they spent years trying to destroy. By the end of this, you will understand why this is not just family drama, but a clinically executed strategy of containment by the British monarchy. To understand the sheer magnitude of this humiliation, we have to rebuild the illusion of what Prince Harry once was. Before the tell-all books, before the Netflix documentaries, and before the endless podcasts broadcasting their victimhood to the highest bidder, Harry was the universally beloved rogue of the royal family. He was protected by an institution that spent $1 billion over his lifetime building an impenetrable PR armor around him. When he married Meghan Markle, they were handed the keys to the golden era of the modern monarchy. They had the adoration of the public, unprecedented global goodwill, and a platform that money simply could not buy. They were positioned to be the progressive, dynamic future of the institution. Reminding ourselves of that staggering privilege is essential because it makes the current reality hit with a devastating contrast. Today, they are reduced to desperately launching lifestyle brands and hawking luxury jams, while the family they walked away from continues to wield genuine global power. The contrast of schadenfreude is palpable. They traded true historical influence for a fragile, commercial existence that requires constant public validation. The mechanism of their ultimate downfall centers around Peter Phillips, the son of Princess Anne and the eldest grandchild of the late Queen Elizabeth. The thing you must understand about Peter is that he is not a peripheral figure in this family. He is the quiet anchor. For decades, Peter and Harry were inseparable. They grew up attending the same royal events, spending holidays at Sandringham together, and navigating the unique, suffocating pressure of being born into the world's most scrutinized family. Peter even attended Harry's first major romantic milestones and was deeply embedded in his inner circle. But the most crucial detail of their relationship was witnessed by the entire world during the funeral of Prince Philip. At a time when the animosity between Prince William and Prince Harry was at a terrifying boiling point, the palace needed a buffer. They chose Peter Phillips. As the brothers walked behind their grandfather's casket, Peter was strategically placed right between them. He was the physical manifestation of peace, the trusted mediator, the neutral ground. Therefore, the narrative that Harry and Peter have simply drifted apart over recent years is a staggering fabrication. Men who are chosen to stand between warring future kings do not simply lose touch. They make conscious, definitive choices, and the choice Peter made was to align completely and unconditionally with Prince William. The PR disaster unfolding in real time is a masterclass in commercial desperation. When news broke that Peter Phillips was getting married again, the global media waited for the guest list. The confirmation was swift and brutal. Every senior royal was invited, but Harry and Meghan were strictly barred. Almost immediately, the Sussex propaganda machine kicked into overdrive. Magazines like People and Hello, often utilized as friendly conduits for Sussex messaging, published perfectly sanitized statements. They quoted unnamed sources claiming that Peter and Harry simply had not spoken for several years and had naturally lost touch, making the lack of an invitation a non-issue. This is where you have to read the subtle social signals that carry devastating deeper meaning. The phrase lost touch is a meticulously crafted lie designed to save face for a prince who has been entirely excommunicated. You do not lose touch with the cousin who stood as your shield at a global funeral. There was a specific, undeniable moment when the young royals decided to sever all contact with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and it happened long before the publication of Spare. To find the exact moment the gates locked forever, we must look back to the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee. During the Thanksgiving service at St. Paul's Cathedral, a subtle but deeply significant sequence of events played out in front of the world's cameras. The protocol for the minor and non-working royals was clear. They were to travel together in a shared luxury shuttle presenting a unified family front, and they were seated in a specific section of the cathedral. Harry and Meghan blatantly refused the group transportation. They demanded separate, high-profile arrivals and departures, attempting to project a status they had voluntarily surrendered. Because they refused to adhere to the schedule, they arrived late and were forced to awkwardly squeeze past seated guests to reach their chairs in the second row. It was a visual humiliation, a glaring physical representation of their downgraded status, but the fatal rupture happened outside the cathedral. As the younger royals, including Zara and Mike Tyndall, stood waiting for the shared transportation, Harry and Meghan approached, attempting to spark a light-hearted conversation. The reaction they received was chilling. Zara and Mike were entirely unbothered, polite, but completely closed off. They refused to engage in the performative warmth that Harry and Meghan desperately needed for the cameras. It was in that exact moment on the steps of St. Paul's that the younger royals silently communicated their verdict. They looked at the endless demands, the arrogance, and the perpetual threat of private conversations being leaked to Oprah or Netflix, and they simply opted out. They chose the loyalty and stability of William over the chaotic, toxic theater of the Sussexes. If being banned from the wedding was the initial shock, the presence of two specific guests turned it into a lethal psychological weapon. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were not just invited, they were reportedly welcomed with open arms by King Charles and Prince William, signaling a massive shift in royal dynamics. You have to remember the context here. Beatrice and Eugenie are the daughters of Prince Andrew, a man completely exiled from public life due to his disastrous association with Jeffrey Epstein. For years, William was adamant that senior working royals should not be heavily photographed with the York sisters, fearing the residual PR contamination from their father's staggering scandals. Yet for this highly publicized summer wedding, the palace deliberately briefed the media that the king wanted Beatrice and Eugenie to come in from the cold and remain a core part of the family. This is not a coincidence. This is a dagger in the heart of the Sussex narrative. The palace is sending a crystal clear message to the world and, more importantly, to Harry and Meghan. The royal family has evaluated the damage caused by the Epstein files, the most horrific scandal in modern royal history, and they have concluded that Beatrice and Eugenie are still less of a threat than the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Let that sink in. The monarchy is willing to associate with the daughters of a disgraced prince, but they consider Harry and Meghan so uniquely dangerous, so commercially desperate, and so fundamentally untrustworthy that they must be erased from the family landscape entirely. The emotional outrage here is profound. Harry and Meghan are realizing that they live within a miasma of their own making. Every bridge has been burned not by a cruel institution, but by their own relentless weaponization of their family ties. They assumed they could attack the monarchy and still retain the glamorous social perks of being royal. They believed their own PR. Now, as the royal family unites, standing stronger and more cohesive without them, the Sussexes are staring down the barrel of total irrelevance, and it is this exact terrifying realization of isolation that has triggered their latest and perhaps most unforgivable moral contradiction. Stripped of their royal access, locked out of the inner circle, and watching their media empire crumble, Meghan Markle has been forced into a corner. With her lifestyle brand failing to gain traction and the public growing exhausted by her professional victimhood, she has made a decision that exposes the ultimate hypocrisy of her entire platform. Desperate to sell products and maintain any illusion of influence, she has quietly crossed a boundary that she and Harry spent years begging the public to respect, a line involving the one thing they swore they would never commodify. The boundary they crossed was the commercialization of their children. For years, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have anchored their public identities to the concept of child protection. Harry has spoken extensively, sometimes eloquently, about the psychological trauma of growing up in a fishbowl, testifying before lawmakers about the inherent dangers of media intrusion on developing minds. Meghan has backed legislation for youth online safety, branding herself a fierce protector of childhood privacy. These were not presented as casual opinions. They were positioned as core moral tenets of their post-royal existence, the very justification for their dramatic exit from the United Kingdom. And then came the promotional posts. In a staggeringly transparent attempt to generate buzz for American Riviera Orchard and in an alleged upcoming fashion line, their children were utilized as background aesthetics. Yes, their faces were obscured, and the glimpses were brief. But the fundamental purpose of their inclusion was not sharing a tender family moment. It was explicitly commercial. The children were placed in the frame to sell candles, luxury jams, and designer shoes. The contradiction here is not a small one. It is a massive structural collapse of their moral high ground. Child development psychologists and PR analysts agree that the damage of early commercialization comes not just from exposure, but from transforming a child into a commodity. By leveraging their children to drive social media engagement and boost a failing brand, Harry and Meghan are actively engaging in the exact behavior they publicly condemn. Even their most loyal media allies have begun to publicly question this jarring hypocrisy. When former editors of friendly tabloid magazines start pointing out the moral bankruptcy of your business plan, the tide has truly turned. This brings us to the psychological tension currently radiating from their camp. What we are witnessing is the collision of Harry's genuine trauma with Meghan's commercial desperation. Harry walked away from his family, his military titles, and his country to protect his wife and children from the relentless machinery of the press. Yet, he now finds himself trapped in a reality where his wife must manufacture media attention to sustain their lifestyle, using the children as the ultimate promotional tool. The internal cognitive dissonance must be deafening. They are learning the hardest lesson of celebrity culture. When you trade the prestige of an institution for the volatile currency of fame, you eventually run out of things to sell. And when you run out of royal secrets, you are forced to sell yourselves and eventually your family. This desperate scramble for relevance stands in devastating contrast to the quiet, methodical consolidation of power happening across the ocean. While Meghan is allegedly uploading and hastily deleting t-shirt sizing charts on a glitchy lifestyle website, Prince William and Princess Catherine are redefining the modern monarchy. The schadenfreude of this contrast is almost painful to observe. Prince William is currently executing a masterclass in long-term institutional strategy. Rather than engaging in the petty transatlantic mudslinging, he is making moves that carry genuine historical weight. He recently announced plans to utilize a significant portion of the Duchy of Cornwall to build social housing, addressing real-world crises while simultaneously silencing critics who view the monarchy as an outdated landlord. He is voluntarily paying full commercial rent on royal properties, actively dismantling the era of privileged peppercorn arrangements that defined the generation before him. He is wielding his inheritance not for personal vanity, but for societal impact. Simultaneously, the return of Princess Catherine to the global stage has been nothing short of a strategic triumph. After navigating a deeply concerning health crisis, her phased return to public life, including planned appearances for the Earthshot Prize, highlights the enduring, irreplaceable soft power of the crown. When Catherine travels, governments mobilize, international media focuses on critical environmental issues, and the diplomatic ties of the United Kingdom are strengthened. When Meghan Markle launches a product, it is debated on gossip blogs and quickly forgotten. This story resonates so deeply because it is fundamentally a modern morality play about the illusion of power versus the reality of duty. Harry and Meghan believed that their global fame was larger than the institution that created them. They mistook public fascination for genuine influence. They thought they could operate as rogue royals, dictating terms to a 1,000-year-old monarchy while cashing in on the title. But the British monarchy does not operate on the frantic timeline of Hollywood PR. It operates in decades and centuries. The palace did not need to destroy Harry and Meghan. They simply needed to close the door and let the Sussexes exhaust their own narrative. The decision by Peter Phillips to exclude his once-beloved cousin from his wedding was the final turn of the key. It was the confirmation that the exile is no longer just institutional. It is deeply, permanently personal. The younger generation of royals has collectively agreed that the chaos is no longer worth the effort. What remains for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex is a gilded cage of their own design. They are trapped in a cycle of diminishing returns, forever chasing the high of their golden era, while the family they left behind continues to write history without them. The royal ban was not a petty snub. It was a declaration of independence by the House of Windsor. The era of Sussex drama is officially over, replaced by the cold, undeniable reality of their irrelevance. If you found this analysis insightful, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We dissect the psychology of power and public relations every single week, and your support ensures we remain completely independent. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.